Whoa, Nelly, let me tell you about aspiration.com. So you can go to the head of the line by going to aspiration.com/TYT, and you don't have to wait on the wait list. There's free access to ATMs all across the world. There's no monthly service fee. I know it just gets better. 10% of their revenue goes to charity. I mean, it doesn't get any more lib than this, and no funding of political campaigns or industry lobbying. So if you were looking for a progressive place to put your money, I think we've got your answer for you, aspiration.com.
The New York Times reported that Donald Trump apparently ordered his chief of staff to give a top secret security clearance to his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, overriding the concerns of intelligence officials, including in the CIA, and the concerns of the top White House lawyer. So, hypothetically, without Donald Trump stepping in and issuing an order to the chief of staff, Jared Kushner would not have received that clearance, which is really interesting considering some of the things that Donald Trump and his family have said about that clearance process. We'll return to that in just a second. But I want to read just a couple of excerpts from the New York Times reporting, give you an idea of what was going on. Mr. Trump's decision in May so troubled senior administration officials that at least one, the White House chief of staff at the time, John F. Kelly, wrote a contemporaneous internal memo about how he'd been ordered to give Mr. Kushner the top secret clearance. So that is certainly how Kelly took it at the time. The White House counsel at the time, Donald F. McGahn II, also wrote an internal memo outlining the concerns that had been raised about Mr. Kushner, including by the CIA. Now, Mr. McGahn had recommended that he not be given a top secret clearance. So those in a position to know that this is a guy with troubling overseas business relationships, including with top government officials in a number of different countries that are not necessarily strong allies of the United States, that is a problem. But he's also related to Donald Trump, so the problem goes away rather quickly. Now, what's interesting is that Donald Trump has talked about that security clearance process, and he gave a very different idea of what was going on at the time, as you'll see.
Do you tell General Kelly or anyone else in the White House to overrule security officials, the career?
No, I don't think I have the authority to do that. I'm not sure I do, but I wouldn't do it. Jared's a good. I was never involved with the security. I know that he, just from reading, I know that there was issues back and forth about security for numerous people actually, but I don't want to get involved in that stuff.
Okay, so that was not that long ago, but he implied that he had not been involved at all. And in fact, he was only learning about it in the same way that we would from reading news reports. Now, let's go to very quickly a source even closer to Jared Kushner. That would be Ivanka Trump, who is also very clear about Donald Trump's hands-off approach to the situation.
There were some issues early on, and there are a lot of people that question whether you were given special treatment by the president, overriding other officials. Can you speak to that?
There were anonymous leaks about there being issues, but the president had no involvement pertaining to my clearance or my husband's clearance. Zero.
What were the problems early on?
There weren't any.
You weren't paying attention, Ivanka. There were some problems. So, in the style of John Oliver, let's drop the balloons from the ceiling. We got him, people. He was obviously lying.
Trump lying? No, say it ain't so. So 3 different ways to break this down. First of all, on the line, understand the New York Times story is backed up by 4 different administration officials. At the time, when they asked John Kelly, who was the chief of staff at the time, to back up Kushner's lawyer, who said, no, we went through the normal process. John Kelly would not respond. He did not agree that they went through the normal process. And so the lawyer keeps saying, well, look, normal process, right? He didn't say that it was authorized during the normal process. He said it went through the normal process, which is, I guess, in a sense true. And that's why lawyers speak in the ways that they do. They go, well, it did go through the normal process. And then when that didn't work, we authorized it through the non-normal process. Okay, I didn't say how it got authorized. So now that's a savvy lawyer, of course. Trump, not so savvy. Oh, I don't get involved in that stuff. And why do you think Kelly and Don McGahn, the White House counsel, wrote it down in a memo? Because they know that Trump's gonna lie about it later. So as soon as the meeting's over, the same reason James Comey and Andrew McCabe wrote down memos after talking to Donald Trump. They're like, well, I'm gonna tell the truth here because this guy's gonna turn on me later. Absolutely. Okay, yeah. And so they didn't want to be on the hook. Now I want to explain in terms of how this normally works, okay? The FBI gathers the information, the background information on someone, and then hands it off to the White House. And the FBI does not make the decision on whether you get security clearance or not. But it doesn't go from the FBI to the president. It goes from the FBI to the White House's Personnel Security Office. And in this case, the Personnel Security Office had a disagreement. People within the office, some said he should get clearance, apparently according to the New York Times reporting, and others said, no, he should not get clearance. So then the third step is it then goes to, if there is a disagreement, Normally there isn't, and the security office decides at the White House and we're done with it. But if there's a disagreement, it goes to the White House counsel, Don McGahn, and that's why we're talking about this. He was the White House counsel at the time. And Don McGahn goes, no, he should definitely not get a security clearance. And then Trump's like, just make it happen, according to the reporting. And he's like, all right, I'm gonna write a memo as to why he should not get security clearance, because this is a really bad idea, and I didn't authorize this, okay? And then it goes to John Kelly. Now, John Kelly's not normally part of the process except for the fact that he's the chief of staff to the president. And Trump's like, what? He apparently told several aides, just make it happen. One of them was like, no, I can't. I'm not in the chain of command there. I don't know what you want me to do, right? Like the secretary walks in, yeah, give him security clearance. What? What am I supposed to do, right? So John Kelly's like, I'm not giving it to him. I'm writing a memo. He wrote a 5-page memo why he shouldn't get clearance, okay? So we're gonna get to why he shouldn't get clearance in a second, because that's a mystery and it's an interesting one. But finally, the president does, I don't want people to get wrong impression here. The president does have the legal authority to do this. It is very unusual. I don't know if it's ever happened before for the president to overrule his staff and say, oh, you guys don't think that he should get security clearance because he might be a security threat to the United States of America. And what do I care? Give it to him anyway. And it appears that's what happened here. So it's not illegal, he can do it. He appears to be lying about it very clearly in the public, and it's probably not a good idea either. So yes.
Well, he does have the legal authority in the same way that he has apparently the legal authority and ability to launch nuclear weapons, both reasons he should have never been put in the White House in the first place, just a reminder to all of us. But also, for Don McGahn, the people inside of the first office, first of all, but then Don McGahn, if there was some dissension, like some people saying he should get it, some people saying he shouldn't get it, to take a look at the evidence and then say, I'm going to say no to the son-in-law of Donald Trump, a guy who cares about his family, aside from Don Jr., more than anything else in the world. Obviously, that's going to not be received well by Donald Trump. It's Ivanka's husband, and yet was still willing to initially say no.
So let's talk about possible reasons why. So first one that's mentioned by everybody is foreign entanglements. So he has business interests, both his family and himself, business interests in other countries, Russia, China, United Arab Emirates, etc. Now, we don't know if that's in and of itself why people were so concerned, but they seem awfully concerned. So it might be, well, he's not only has business interests, but he's trying to do deals. And that could be a real significant issue that would get it to this kind of controversy, right? So if he just has business interests in the rest of the world, so does Trump. I don't think, to John's point, that McGahn and John Kelly risked their jobs to write memos saying Trump is wrong, right? So another part of it is that he lied in his background check. He told the FBI that he did not meet with the Russians, and during the transition, he met with the Russian ambassador, Sergei Kislyak, and then, this is interesting, the head of a Russian state-owned bank. And then his lawyer, when they were caught, said, oh, that was inadvertent. He forgot that he met with a top Russian state bank. Come on. Oh, that slipped your mind as you were walking in the White House that you met with the Russian ambassador in one of the top banks in Russia? So that's of significant concern.
Yes, when you have this many conflicts going on between multiple people, I mean, I would venture to say that the president also probably would have been rejected for his security clearance too, because he's got similar kinds of conflicts and potentially being held by other people because he owes them. But so the shifting of the lies, it always has to change. Even when it came to payments for Stormy Daniels, they always changed the reason for the lie. Like in that case, they changed it, like, oh, it wasn't coming from campaign finances, but in reality, we found out it's because after he uses it from his foundation to pay for it. That's another problem that he has. In this case, first he's thinking, I don't have the authority, so I'll lie about that, when he has no idea whether he does or not, because he just bowls through whether he had it or not. But now, because the reason comes up that they're covering up potential problems that Kushner had, they didn't want to expose that part. So their lies shift based off of what we know. So every time.
Well, one more thing about Trump, right? So he wants Jared to have security clearance, partly because he's his son-in-law, partly because he appointed him to a position that he has no experience in, and Trump, wants to prove himself right. Oh no, he's going to be very strong in all those positions. He actually gave him a whole bunch of positions. But there could be another reason, which I find to be far more likely, not just on top of those two, which is that, now look, Jared has his own foreign entanglements, but my claim has been that I'm not worried about emails or tweets during the campaign and whether Trump and Putin talked about that. and I guess that's the main thing that the Democratic establishment is concerned about. I'm more concerned about collusion after the election. And so here they are, Trump's won. And that's when, remember, Eric Prince goes to Seychelles Island to meet with the Russians secretly, along with the United Arab Emirates, which Kushner also has a deal with. And so they do a secret meeting after the victory. And here's Jared Kushner, after the victory, immediately going to talk to the Russian ambassador and a Russian bank. Is he doing that on his own behalf? Or perhaps because he's a trusted person that Donald Trump can tell, hey, I got some business with the Russian bank. I can't go talk to them. Jared, you go talk to them. And so when his security clearance comes up and Trump knows he sent him to go, one possible theory, I wanna be clear, right? Trump's like, yeah, I sent him on that. No, security clearance given, fine. And by the way, he's gonna need him to have security clearance if he wants him to do more secret deals, right? And so, by the way, the different levels of security clearance are fun, and I learned it today. I want you to know it, because I didn't know the exact last phraseology for the last layer. So there's secret, which Kushner at one point got demoted to. Then there's top secret, which is the layer that he was at for a long time. And then there's the last layer, need to know. Okay, so the need to know was the issue at hand, and Trump decided that Kushner does need to know. And I mean, if anyone needs to know Trump's business dealings, it might be Jared Kushner, and that's why he might be in a lot of trouble.
A lot of these guys are all caught up, and this is my last thing on it. But we keep forgetting. If you think Donald Trump is Teflon, think about Ivanka. She continues to be in the middle of all these things. It's her husband. She doesn't know anything that's going on. She's got businesses as well, and she blatantly lies right in front of someone's face too, right to Abby Huntsman's face as well. So I would like for sometimes for it all to stick. When you're working with what seems to be an international criminal, you're also an international criminal. So just because you sit there and you go, wasn't me, it doesn't mean that suddenly you're off the hook. You're working with and committing the same lies that your father is. So we got to paint them all with the same brush, because somehow she'll just fly out of this and they'll be like, oh man, Kushner and Trump, here's what they're doing? Yeah, so is Ivanka, and so is everyone else that's surrounding them, because they know and they have to be held responsible for it.
Yeah, but to be fair though, I think she'll look wonderful in orange. Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.